Now we're going to start applying the gel coat. Again, you want your flange all the way around the outside. And you want this rather thick because after you pull the mold, you want to sand this down and polish it. So you want a thick enough gel coat so that you won't sand through into the laminate. We're now going to let this tack up. It's going to take approximately 4 to 5 hours. Then we'll come back and I'll clean up this mess over here, and then we can start laying down our fiberglass to build up the plies of the mold. It's been 5 hours or so, and we're nice and tacky here. Not real tacky, but just a little bit tacky. So now we're at the right stage to come in and start fiberglassing the mold. Some people like to start out with a fiberglass cloth as the first ply. Others like to come in with a chop strand mat. Because I put the gel coat on very, very thick, I like to start out with some fiberglass cloth first. It conforms a little bit better, and it allows me to shape it pretty well. So I'll put a couple plies down of the fiberglass cloth, and then I'll build thickness with the chop strand mat. You want the mold to be thick enough so that it's not going to flex, and to be able to be strong enough for repeated use. So we're going to come in and put a few plies of the fiberglass cloth on first, and then we're going to use the chop strand mat to build thickness and strength into the mold. And that way, again, we do not want any flexing, and we also want the mold to be strong enough for repeated use. So let's go ahead and mix up some resin, and we'll start putting a couple plies down of the fiberglass cloth. First thing we're going to do is to take some of the resin and come in and put a layer of resin on top of the gel coat. We want to pre-wet the surface, so when we put the first ply on, it's going to soak in and provide a good foundation for the glass. And we want that to be really wetted out. And I've cut the glass a little bit wider. We can put it on around on the mold surface, and then later after the part cures we can take and trim that mold down to size. We're probably going to have to take and make a small incision right there so the fiberglass will overlap slightly in the front. What you're looking for is the dry spots. You don't want any dry spots. You want to wet out the fabric so that and make sure that it compacts down into the grooves and into the recessed areas. And by pre-wetting the surface, it helps that fiberglass to get drawn down to the surface. If you just put dry fiberglass and start trying to wet it out, it's not going to wet out really nicely. It's going to start squirming around and lifting. That's why you always want to pre-wet your surface. Notice you can see it lifting a little bit. So by keep on wetting the surface, we're going to draw that ply down. Same up here, we're going to have to make a snip because of the curved surface. In the fillet areas on the side, you really want to make sure you have no delamination there. You want the first ply to be really compacted down on the gel coat. In fact, you want all your plies to be compacted down very tightly. We're going to lift this layer of fiberglass up and push it down. It's okay if this end is open a little bit because we put the radius of the clay on there. We don't need a complete finished back end because we're going to trim the final carbon. So if this sticks up a little bit right at the very end, that's acceptable because that's going to be trimmed. We have the first ply of chop strand mat with the pleats cut. Now this is going to be real messy. These strands want to lift on you, so you have to make sure you get this wetted out really well. And in some cases the little strands will lift, and what you want to do is just push them back down. You may even want to come in beforehand and put some more resin down, and that will help grab on to the top strand. I'm going to have to mix up some more resin here in a little bit. Because we use such a thick gel coat, and then we put the 2 plies of cloth on, we shouldn't get any print through because the gel coat was applied really thick. That's why a lot of people do chop strand mat as the first ply, because they're afraid that they're going to get bleed through of the cloth. But we put on the gel coat really thick, so we shouldn't have to worry about that. I've done this before like this and have had no trouble with bleed through. Okay, I'm going to mix up some more resin off camera here. We have the first ply down of chop strand mat. You'll find that it really sucks up the resin. It uses a lot of resin, and it's also very, very difficult to get down and stay down. It wants to lift. So there's another technique that I've seen where you actually take the chop strand and you shred it into small sections, and then you lay the sort of the shredded pieces out across the mold, and you wet it out that way. So being that the first ply was rather curved, what we're going to do in the next plies is we're going to try the shredding method, and we will mix up some more resin and we will start shredding some of the chop strand mat and lay it down that way. But again, the first ply really sucks up the resin and is really difficult to compact down, so you just have to keep on working it and keep on adding resin. So we're going to try this different technique. I've seen other people do it this way, and I'm going to try this now. Most of the parts I use aren't as curved as this part, so we're going to try this next piece by putting on the next ply and shredding it up a bit and building up thickness that way. But as you can see, the first ply is pretty much compacted down, and we're ready for the second ply. Shredding the chop strand mat and laying it down seems to go down much easier. So from now on, we're going to do it this way when we have a nice curvature on the part. we have a total of 7 plies. I put 3 of the chopped strand mat on top of the 2 plies, and then I put another 2 plies of fiberglass cloth on top of the chopped strand mat. That will hold it down and hopefully let it bond properly and all compacted down. So again, total of 7 plies. We'll let this cure overnight, and then we will demold it. We'll clean it up, and then in another video I'll show you how we're going to lay up some e-bike fenders using carbon fiber. Hope you enjoyed this video. We'll see you in the next video.